All right, good evening, everybody. This is the August 15th, 2018 meeting of the Planning Board of the Town of Smithtown. We're going to begin it with the Pledge of Allegiance, and you're all invited to join in. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the Planning Board. The Planning Department would like to recommend the following items be recessed because the applicants are not ready to be heard at this time. Under zoning petitions, number 1, 2012-04, Storybook Homes, Nesconset. Number 2, 2012-02, Carlson Associates, Kings Park. Number 3, 2010-06, KVC Holdings. Under waiver requests, number 4, 773 Scholar Estates in Comac. Under 280A application, number 5, Lizetta Street. And under final subdivision, number 1136, map of Open Meadow in Fort Salonga.
Is there anybody present that wishes to be heard on the matters that were just read regarding which the Planning Department is requesting be recessed and adjourned? Seeing none, a motion, please.
And I move that we recess matters 1 through 6 as read.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? None? So recessed.
The first item under new hearings and decisions is a waiver request for number 1096 Maloney Estates in Smithtown. The applicant requests the planning board to waive the requirement of street trees and sidewalks within a subdivision known as number 1096 map of Maloney Estates. The subdivision number 1096 map of Maloney Estates received conditional final approval from the planning board on April 18th, 2012. The applicant was bonded for 520 feet of sidewalk and 15 street trees along Lincoln Avenue and Maria Court. The applicant submitted an application to waive all the street trees and sidewalks on July 16, 2018. The applicant states that the homeowners do not want the sidewalks constructed or the street trees planted. The applicant also submitted signatures of the homeowners on Maria Court in support of the waiver requests. The Highway Department has reviewed the waiver requests and has no objection to the applicant's request. The Engineering Department has no objection to waiving the sidewalks, but defers to the Planning Department for the waiver of street trees. The Planning Department has no objection to the sidewalk waiver for the following reasons. 1, Lincoln Avenue and Maria Court are residential access streets and have been identified by the Planning Department as streets that do not need sidewalks due to the low traffic volume. 2, there are no sidewalks on the north side of Lincoln Avenue. The Planning Department objects to the street tree waiver for the following reasons. 1, the Planning Department performed an on-site inspection of Lincoln Avenue and Maria Court on July 24, 2018, and determined there is sufficient space to plant street trees within the right-of-ways of both streets. And 2, street trees are standard public improvement in all subdivisions as they improve the character of the neighborhood and are generally beneficial to the community. The Planning Department offers the following resolution for the board's consideration. Planning Board Resolution number blank 2018, waiver request of public improvements for number 1096, map of Maloney Estates. Whereas the Planning Board has considered the request of John Maloney to waive 520 feet of sidewalk and 15 street trees on Lincoln Avenue and Maria Court within the subdivision number 1096, map of Maloney Estates. Now therefore be it first resolved that the Planning Board hereby approves the request by John Maloney to waive 520 feet of sidewalk within the subdivision number 1096, map of Maloney Estates for the following reasons. 1, Lincoln Avenue and Maria Court are residential access streets and have been identified by the Planning Department as streets that do not need sidewalks due to the low traffic volume. 2, there are no sidewalks on the north side of Lincoln Avenue. And second, resolved that the Planning Board hereby denies the request of John Maloney to waive 15 street trees within the subdivision number 1096, map of Maloney Estates for the following reasons. 1, the Planning Department performed an on-site inspection of Lincoln Avenue and Maria Court on July 24, 2018, and determined there is sufficient space to plant street trees within the right-of-ways of both streets. 2, street trees are a standard public improvement in all subdivisions as they improve the character of the neighborhood and generally beneficial to the community.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Vincent Tremarco. I represent the applicant. I'll be submitting the affidavit of posting to Matt Collado. The recommendation to waive the sidewalks, obviously, we agree with since there are no sidewalks in the area. My client submitted to the planning department basically one reason for the waiver of the street trees is we don't think they're necessary in the area. And secondly, the planting of them would require, according to my builder, difficulty in actually planting them because of the way the electrical and water lines are installed along the road. Also, the people in the subdivision desire not to have the street trees. However, my conversations with Mr. Colato, he makes, I think, a pretty good point about saying, hey, you know, it's to beautify the area. So perhaps one of the things is that we could do more street trees on Lincoln, which there is less a fear of breaking into those water lines. And secondly, give the town money for planting of trees around that area, but not specifically along the road. I have to say that Matt reminded me that basically you haven't done that in a while, and I probably was the one that objected to us paying the money and not putting in the trees. But I think in this circumstance, it may benefit not only my client and the people in the subdivision, but also the town, because I think you can find areas right by the subdivision to require us to plant and maybe pay the difference. Another thing that Matt did indicate to me was they do go out to the site, and because the bond says, for example, 15 street trees, they may decide later that all we need is 10 or 12. It doesn't have to come back to this board. But in any event, I'd ask the board to think favorably on our request, and thank you.
Well, I just have a question. They're required to put in 15 street trees now, correct?
Yes.
Doesn't say up to, it says 15. And this possible alternate solution involves planting street trees on Lincoln and no street trees on Maria Court, or fewer street trees on Maria Court?
I would say fewer street trees where it's tactically feasible. I said before about the 15 and less street trees, that was stated to me by Mr. Colato. If that's not the case, it's not the case.
Well, is that something that it doesn't seem like we have the exact details worked out yet about how many street trees would be planted on Lincoln, if this proposal was gonna be acted on?
We don't.
Or also the amount of money,
Right.
if that was another way that we were gonna do it. So I would also think that if we are going to waive any of the trees, probably some of us wanna go look at it. And it doesn't sound like we're gonna be able to act on it tonight anyway, except as is, because if we have these alternate proposals, it seems like we have to work out the details of those proposals and then have one of those sets of details put in the resolution.
That'd be fine.
Okay, so I think we probably would want to recess it to the next meeting. That should give everybody time, I would think, unless you want to go further out.
No, next meeting is fine.
Okay.
It's September anyway, I
12th.
think.
Sure.
One question, reference is made in the planning department's memo of letters of support for the waiver, and it makes reference that it's attached. Don't see it in my packet. Do we have that? And if so, how many of the, was it 5 homeowners or property owners there spoke out in support?
I mean, the petition, they say. Another thing I'd want to know also is the petition asked to waive the street trees and the sidewalks, or just the sidewalks, or just the street trees? All right, so just for the record, I've been handed what looks like a petition of some type. It says, to Town of Smithtown Planning Board regarding map of Maloney Estates, Maria Court, Smithtown. It's signed by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people. They all look like they reside on Maria Court. And the memo or the petition, I'm going to read it into the record, states, we are the residents of Maria Court. we are in agreement that we do not want sidewalks constructed along Maria Court, nor do we want street trees to be planted in front of our homes. Thank you, signed, and then it lists the names of the people. So there is apparently a petition signed by 6 homeowners who appear to live in 4 different residences, which of course we will take that into consideration when we make our decision on this. After, I think, probably some of the board members, I'd like to go look at it if I'm going to waive some of these 15 trees, so maybe we can all get an idea of how many, unless the planning board has an idea. Thank you. Any other question?
No, that's it.
Anybody in the audience wish to be heard on this matter? Okay, it appears that it might be appropriate to recess the matter to the next meeting to allow Mr. Tramarko to work with the planning department staff on some of these possible alternative solutions involving possible payment of money or possible planting of trees on Lincoln Avenue as opposed to Maria Court, and also to give any board members who wish to go out there and do what's called an on-site inspection the opportunity to do that. So can we have,
Real quick, I mean,
Sure.
their alternative resolution would be for fewer. I'm not
just
saying
to
no
reiterate-
trees on
Just to
Maria.
reiterate, it's a performance on estimate, so when they put down 15, they're going off, the frontage of the entire subdivision. But you gotta account for existing street trees, curb cuts, utility poles, so that's why it's an estimate, but when you go out there and mark them out based on the existing things that are out there, it could be less.
all the more reason for all of us to go have a look at it ourselves and come back and hopefully come to some kind of consensus on this.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I mean, but the other side of it is for, that they said they don't want any street trees. I do understand. I mean, it is part of Smithtown to have street trees on all the subdivisions. It would be okay with fewer, but I would have to say, that we definitely need something rather than none on Maria.
Fine.
So we'll have to go look at it, and then,
Okay.
if you wanna continue to work with the planning staff on alternatives such as fewer trees and/or payment of money, that's something that can be explored between now and, is it September 12th is our next meeting, I believe?
Yep.
All right, so do we have a motion to recess this matter to the September 12th meeting?
In the matter of number 1096, map of Maloney Estates, I move that we recess the public hearing to the September 12, 2018 meeting of the planning board.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? None? So recessed, and hopefully between now and then, some type of consensus will be reached, everybody could be happy with.
The next item on the agenda is another waiver request for number 911A Glenholm Northern in St. James. The applicant requests to waive condition N of the final approval for the subdivision known as number 911A map of Glenholm Northern. The final subdivision of number 911A map of Glenholm Northern received conditional final approval from the planning board on May 21st, 1997. This was a 2-lot subdivision in the R21 zoning district fronting Northern Boulevard in St. James. Lot 1 is approximately 154 feet of frontage and is 1.6 acres in size. Lot 2 is approximately 100 feet of frontage and is 0.5 acres in size. Condition N reads as follows. Covenants and restrictions on a form acceptable to the town attorney shall be filed with the deed of lot number 1 prohibiting future subdivision for new residents unless the lots meet the frontage and area requirements for this R21 zoning district, and the 1.5-story frame barn shall not be used for business or residential occupancy, and no principal or accessory structure shall be permitted in the 56-foot by 100-foot panhandle. In 2007, a waiver request was submitted to the planning board in order to waive a part of condition N to allow lot 1 to be divided into 2 lots with 77 feet of frontage each. The minimum lot frontage requirement in the R21 zoning district is 100 feet. Proposal complies with the minimum lot area requirements for the R21 zoning district. For clarity, this memorandum refers to the lots in the original subdivision as lots 1 and 2, and the lots in the potential subdivision as lots 1B and 2B. As part of the waiver request, the applicant submitted a yield plan that demonstrates that lot 1 could be divided into 2 lots that fully conform to zoning and subdivision regulations. However, it was his opinion that the 2 77-foot wide lots would be more in character with the neighborhood. Between the years 2007 and 2010, the planning board held 3 hearings regarding this waiver application on January 16th, 2008, December 1st, 2010, and December 15th, 2010. After reviewing the minutes of the 3 meetings and correspondence in the file, it appears the planning department had no objection to waiving the part of condition N that required the applicant to comply with the frontage requirements of the R21 zoning district. The planning department's opinion was based on the fact that the zoning district on the west side of Northern Boulevard is R10, which requires a minimum frontage of 75 feet, and the typical frontage of the lots on the west side of the street is 75 feet. Therefore, the applicant's proposal would be in character with those lots. However, the planning department objected to the house on Lot 1B being set back approximately 284 feet from the street. At that time, the planning department recommended that both houses be set back 50 feet in order to match the character of the east side of Northern Boulevard. The planning department also noted that setting the house far back from the road raised issues with emergency vehicle access and privacy concerns for surrounding neighbors. The applicant objected to the house being set back 50 feet from Northern Boulevard, and there has been no movement on the application since 2011. In the update, this past month, the applicant met with the planning department to ask the planning department to reconsider the applicant's proposal. After reconsidering this request, it appears that the department's original objections were not germane to the waiver request, but rather should be evaluated when the applicant submits a proposal to subdivide Lot 1. Any waiver approval that places such specific conditions, i.e. specifying building locations, on a future land division could be seen as a pre-approval of that subdivision. For the above reasons, the planning department recommends that the planning board approve the waiver request. Recommendation: the planning department offers the following resolution for the board's consideration. Planning board resolution number blank 2018, waiver of conditional final approval for number 911A map of Glenholm Northern. Whereas the planning department has considered the request of Arthur Heinrich to waive part of condition N of final approval within the subdivision known as number 911A map of Glenholm Northern in order to allow a subdivision of Lot 1 where the lot frontages do not meet the R21 zoning district requirement. Now therefore be it first resolved that the planning board hereby waives part of condition N of final approval within the subdivision known as number 911A map of Glenholm Northern in order to allow a subdivision of Lot 1 with lot frontages of 77 feet, which is less than the R21 zoning district minimum requirement for the following reasons. 1. The yield plan submitted demonstrates that Lot 1 can be subdivided in full conformance with the zoning ordinance and subdivision regulations. 2. Dividing Lot 1 into 2 lots with 77 feet of frontage on Northern Boulevard would be in character with the neighborhood because the zoning districts on the west side of Northern Boulevard is R10, which requires a minimum frontage of 75 feet, and the typical frontage of the lots on the west side of the street is 75 feet.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, my name is Vincent Tremarco. I represent the applicant. Obviously, we agree and thank the planning department for its recommendation to the planning board.
Do you have affidavit posting?
I do, I'll give you both of them. I think the recommendation makes sense, and the configuration of the lots, bearing in mind that right across the street, there is R10 zoning, which requires only a 75-foot frontage. So we ask the board for their favorable consideration in waiving that condition. Thank you.
Are you asking for just the frontage portion to be waived? Because the condition encompasses other things other than the frontage. For example, that the 1.5-story frame barn shall not be used for business purposes or residential occupancy, and no principal or accessory structure shall be permitted in the 56 by 100 feet panhandle. So that if this whole condition is taken out, then those other restrictions are gone too.
The 2 other restrictions, the barn, what was that again, Mr. Chairman?
It says the condition N that you're seeking to have us agree to let you waive or to waive it. It says after it talks about the frontage section, and it says, and the 1.5-story frame barn shall not be used for business or residential occupancy, and no principal or accessory structure shall be permitted in the 56 feet by 100 feet panhandle. So I understand it, the resolution, it eliminates the entire condition. So not only are we eliminating the condition of the frontage, which may be warranted by the houses across the street being only 75 feet, but we're also eliminating this condition that says it can't be used for business or residential occupancy, meaning the barn, and that no principal or accessory structure can be permitted in a certain part of the property.
It does say under the first resolve, the planning board hereby waives part of condition and final approval.
Part, not all, right?
Yeah. In order to allow subdivisions of lot one with lot frontages of 77 feet.
So do we know exactly which part is being waived and which part isn't? Does it say which part?
I can square it away very simply. We
Okay.
don't have no objection to the
It's
lawn
just saying,
not be
yeah.
not be used for business or residential purposes. And the panhandle piece, I believe, is that piece that's jutted off to the right. They'll be part of one of the lots, but certainly not be used for an additional dwelling.
so that you would be okay with a modifying of the resolution that says that we are only changing the frontage requirement, or waiving the frontage portion of condition N, with the rest of it remaining in place?
Right.
Any,
Yes.
Okay, any questions from any member of
Yes,
the board?
just to reiterate, so we are requiring the minimum frontage of 77 or 75 feet for each lot. That we are not waiving, by granting this, am I to understand, we are requiring the property be split that way?
Well, I don't know, but as I read the resolution, I don't know that it says anything about,
Because we could be creating a future flag lot here, and this could be the first step.
well, hang on.
The width of the second
So we wanted to have 75 feet in
Yeah.
front.
Well, I think that,
Both
I think that, I don't know if the resolution specifically, it takes away the requirement of meeting the R21, but I don't know if it puts another minimum in, is what you're asking.
Yeah, I would like to see that, that would be important.
I agree with you. In other words, if we just take out the condition of the R21,
Right.
then it's no limit. So we should at least replace
Yeah,
that
you
with,
could have a 25-foot strip
right,
of
we
the
should
road
replace that
and
with,
a house in back of a house again.
if the intention is to have two lots with 77 feet of frontage, and that meets
Right.
with 75 feet, then I think the resolution should not just take away the condition, but it should also set the new minimum.
Agreed.
And perhaps if the 75 feet, he's gonna have 77, it's more. So if 75 feet, is that what the R15 requirement is?
R10.
R10. So we could just say that the minimum shall be no less than the R10.
Okay.
Okay.
This, the condition two mentions some of that.
We're gonna take this out,
See,
and we're gonna make it, put 75-foot frontage on both of them.
But it doesn't, I don't think it says that,
think so.
I don't think it says,
It just covers.
I don't know how they're gonna
it
phrase it.
says the language, but it doesn't
Doesn't have
specifically say that it
the
must meet.
restrictions.
In other words, basically, you could just take out the word R21 in the resolution and put in R10, and then I think we'd be done.
And here it has R10, but we don't know. See on number two of the conditions, it does mention
Mr. Chairman,
R10.
Yes.
maybe this would help. I got copies of
Okay,
maps that we submitted.
but just to go back, to address, Mr. Chase's point,
Thank you, sir.
perhaps all we need to do is with the existing resolution, just substitute R10 for R21. And, because what Mr. Chase's point is, and I think it's well taken, if we just take out, the requirement that it meets R21 and don't put something else in there, there is no minimum. But since you're asking for, two lots that are gonna be 77, if we just change that we're not gonna eliminate the condition, we're gonna modify the condition and just substitute the words R10 for R21, and then the rest of the language about the residence and the accessory structure can remain the same. That would make it simple.
You know, it really doesn't matter because we'd have to come back here with an actual map. And this board then would rule on,
This is true, but having been here a while, I've known that once an initial step is taken and then it seems like approval has been implied somehow to maybe create a flag lot, another board somewhere down the road may say, okay, and that's my concern. That we
So-
lock it in the resolution, that we specifically state that maps are all well and good, but it should say something in the resolution. to
So
guarantee.
wouldn't it, Mr. Corrado, or, I don't know if you were the one that was working on this, but the condition is listed in the memo. And if we just instead of eliminating the condition, if we just substituted the words R10 for R21, then we would allow subdivisions, or would be prohibited unless the lots meet the frontage requirement of R10. And then,
I would just only say the frontage portion R10, but you still want the area requirements to be the R10.
Right, in other words, okay. So the
So
frontage requirements
You
of
just
R,
wanna modify the condition from the original subdivision.
correct. Because he's agreeing to keep the rest of the language in there, which
Okay.
if we eliminated the condition, that would be out too. The language that restricts it, to the barn not being used for business or residential purposes, I think that should remain there unless somebody gives us a reason why we should take it out. And he doesn't appear to need to have it taken out. And then the part about the panhandle portion, he's not in objection with, it's really just the frontage, I think
Yeah.
that the issue is. So we can modify the resolution just to say that, the lots cannot be future subdivided unless the lots meet the, frontage requirements of the R21 zoning district and the area requirements for the frontage
Right.
requirements for the R10 zoning district and the area requirements for the R21.
That works.
I don't know if it meets, Matt, does it meet both?
Yeah, the seven,
Yeah.
you were proposing 77 each, 77 a little bit.
Right, so if R10 is 75 and you're proposing 77
Right.
each,
No,
you're
I was
above the minimum.
talking about the area, but I see that it does.
The lots both meet the minimum R21 area requirements. You're just looking for the waiver of the frontage. So if you just say, if you're modifying condition N to say the new residences unless the lots meet the R10 frontage and the area requirements for the R21.
Correct, we could just modify the resolution accordingly, assuming everybody's is comfortable with that.
Fine,
Okay by you?
yeah.
Anybody,
You're gonna
any other
keep the other
questions?
one in there?
Yeah, well, I'll just read it.
1.5
I'll-
story
I'll
bond
read
frame
it.
and all that's gonna stay in there?
I'll read it into the record as modified, and hopefully it'll be correct.
Okay.
But first, before we do that, is there anybody in the audience who wishes to be heard on this matter? All right, so before we vote, I'm just going to read into the record what I think will be the resolution, that the resolution will be to modify condition N, to read as follows. N, covenants and restrictions on a form acceptable to the town attorney shall be filed with the deed of lot number 1, prohibiting future subdivision for new residences unless the lots meet the frontage requirement for the R10 zoning district and area requirements for the R21 zoning district, and the 1.5-story frame dwelling shall not be used for business or residential occupancy, and no principal or accessory structure shall be permitted in the 56 feet by 100 feet panhandle. That will be what the new condition will read as modified.
As part of the resolution.
And
Correct.
that's what
The
we're
one
gonna vote
part
on.
that
Correct.
I didn't hear, it says no principal or accessory structure in this flag. I don't see why we couldn't put an accessory structure here related to the house. I don't know why that would be in there.
That was part of the original
Agreement.
condition.
Yeah.
I don't know what, how that ended up in there, but if nobody's looking to do that, then wouldn't be a problem. If, again,
Well, I'm just trying to think about the future,
I
like
understand.
Mr. Chase
No,
thinks about the future.
I understand that, that's
And,
true.
you know, I'm
And
gonna
it-
leave that blank.
No, well,
And it's
how about this then? I mean, you don't have to be, comfortable with it. You may wanna have your client think about it. But if we're being asked to waive that requirement, again, maybe it's something that we wanna go look at.
I think we should adjourn.
If we were,
I'm gonna ask my client to come up. I don't mean to belabor this.
that's okay. That's why we're here.
This whole piece here, the condition would say you can't even put an accessory structure in there.
Yeah, I know, and I had a little bit of a qualm with
Why don't you put your name on?
Just give your name and address, sir.
Art Heinrich, 155 Northern Boulevard, St. James, New York. I know that there's no structure in there because originally when they subdivided the first part up there, Frank didn't want to have any, sheds back there or anything like that.
You say Frank, you mean Mr. DeRuby
Yeah,
is the
Frank
former
Dubrovis. He was
planning
the-
director.
He was the chairman when that subdivision took place also.
He was the planning director.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, oh yeah, excuse me, I said chairman. I mean, it would be great to put like a small shed or something back there, I wouldn't object to that. I wouldn't mind that, but, as far as building, you know, a dwelling back there or doing anything like that, you know, I can't see anything going back there. Do you consider a pool a structure? If somebody wanted to
Pool is a
put-
structure, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
See, sir, you know, we have this condition in front of us, and that's how it reads, you know, so we didn't impose this condition, this is what we're
Right.
dealing with. So, the main issue seems to be the frontage, and what I propose might address the frontage, but if you are not comfortable, or you want something beyond just the frontage, or you want the right to possibly put an accessory structure in there, you may very well get that. But I think before we can waive that part of it, we may wanna go out and take a look at it and see if that place is appropriate for a potential accessory structure or not.
I'm fine with it just staying the way it is, you know,
Okay.
there's no structure in there.
You're okay with that?
I'm okay with that.
Okay. I mean, if you're okay with it, we're okay with it, but don't, you know, if you prefer to possibly put something there, you know, we'll have to go take a look at it and maybe amend that, but as of right today, I don't think we're gonna be amending it unless we go
Right.
see.
I'm all right with that.
Okay,
I can't argue with
can't
it.
argue with your client.
So we're comfortable with that end right there, then, Jimmy,
As I,
everything's gonna
as I
stay.
read it before,
That's all gonna stay.
basically, for the record, the the condition is just being amended as I read it. It's not being
Okay.
waived completely or dropped.
Okay.
I think
You
council
just need to
has-
make a conforming change in the title of the resolution, strike the words waiver of and replace it with.
Modification
modified.
of, right. So that also, the resolution will be, Planning Board Resolution number blank 2018, modification of conditional final approval, number 911A, map of Glen Hill Northern, because we're modifying the condition, we're not waiving it completely.
That's fine.
Okay, so I have read into the record what the new condition would be like. We have a motion, please, to approve the resolution, subject to the condition being modified, condition N being modified, not waived. Modified as set forth in the record as I previously read.
You do it so well.
Okay? On the matter of,
Want me to close?
I got it. Yeah, we moved to, first we gotta move to close the public hearing. Move to close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Now, on the resolution, in the matter of Glen Hill, matter of conditional final approval, Glen Hill Northern, number 911-A, map of Glen Hill Northern. I move that we adopt the resolution as read in accordance with the recommendation of the Planning Department as modified in the record as previously read to reflect that condition N is not being waived, it's being modified as read to effectively just allow subdivision provided that the frontage meets the R10 requirements as opposed to the R21 requirements.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Resolution passes.
I put them in.
You have the affidavit of posting on those?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, the next item is a preliminary subdivision, number 1182, map of Roseville Park in St. James. It's hard to see that.
Okay.
I think this one's drawn on something. Okay, the applicant requests preliminary approval to subdivide a 2.49 acre parcel into 4 single-family residential lots. The preliminary subdivision, known as number 1182, map of Roseville Park, 1904, is comprised of one tax lot that fronts Lake Avenue, Roseville Avenue, and Anne Marie Drive in St. James. The parcel is 2.49 acres and is located in the R21 zoning district. The site is surrounded by R21 zoning and single-family dwellings. There's a single-family dwelling on Lot 2 that will remain. This lot fronts both Lake Avenue and Roseville Avenue. The subdivision proposes one additional dwelling fronting Lake Avenue and 2 additional dwellings fronting Roseville Avenue. Lot 4 also fronts Anne Marie Drive. The topography of the site is flat and located approximately 135 feet above sea level. The site does not contain any high groundwater or natural surface water features. All of the lots conform to the requirements of the zoning ordinance. The engineering department has reviewed the preliminary application and found it acceptable. It recommends the following as conditions of approval. 1, an erosion sediment control plan must be filed with final plat application. 2, a concrete survey monument should be installed on the southwest corner of Lot 4. It appears that the second condition is premature to impose at the time of preliminary layout approval. However, if the subdivision is approved, the monument should be included as a public improvement. The Highway Department has reviewed the preliminary application and offers the following comments. 1, concrete curbs are required on Lake Avenue as directed by the Highway Department. 2, the 2x2-foot catch basin on Lake Avenue needs to be updated to a Type 1 catch basin and moved out of the radius to Lake Avenue. The basin should be connected to the existing pool under the handicapped ramp and to the additional pool in the right-of-way as directed by the Highway Department. 3, the ramp at the corner of Lake Avenue and Roosevelt Avenue should be updated to ADA compliant ramp. The Traffic Safety Department has reviewed the preliminary application and has found it acceptable. The Department of Environment and Waterways has found the tree preservation and land clearing plan acceptable and recommends issuing a secret negative declaration. The Department of Environment and Waterways also recommends conditions regarding clearing of land and site preparation before construction that will be addressed during final plat approval. The Planning Department has reviewed the preliminary application and finds it acceptable and offers the following comment. 1, when it approved the subdivision to the north of this property, map of Anne Marie Park, the Planning Board intended Anne Marie Drive to eventually be extended through the subject property to connect to Roosevelt Avenue. The proposed layout does not include extending Anne Marie Drive. However, it appears this layout is more in keeping with the character of the neighborhood than if the street was extended. The recommendation, the Department of Environment and Waterways offers the following resolution for the pursuant to the State Environmental Quality Review Act. Planning Board Resolution number blank 2018, recommended secret declaration for number 1182, map of Roosevelt Park, 1904. Whereas the Planning Board has considered the secret recommendation from the Department of Environment and Waterways and indicated that any potential adverse environmental impacts associated with said project does not rise to the level of significance which would require the preparation of an environmental impact statement. Now therefore be it first resolved that the Planning Board hereby issues a secret negative declaration determination of non-significance. An EIS is not necessary in the matter of the application for subdivision approval trust under will of Lattice D. Custer, care of Roger Budd, for number 1182, map of Roosevelt Park, 1904, for the following reasons. A, the proposal does not appear to significantly threaten any unique or highly valuable environmental or cultural resources as identified in or regulated by the Environmental Conservation Law of the State of New York or Smithtown Town Code. B, the parcel does not appear to suffer any severe environmental development constraints, no poor soil properties, no high groundwater, and no unmanageable slopes. C, the small size and nature of the proposal mitigate against a significant adverse impact upon the environment. D, the proposal appears to be consistent with the planned use of the parcel and compatible with neighboring land uses. E, the project as proposed on the tree preservation and land clearing plan prepared by Michael James Hillebrand, licensed land surveyor and dated September 19, 2017, provides for the retention of a significant amount of existing trees and natural vegetation upon development of the subject parcel. Such preservation shall be ensured by the placement of snow fencing or orange mesh construction fencing along the limits of clearing and around any individual trees to be preserved within clearing areas. This shall be done to the satisfaction of the Environmental Protection Director, and said fencing shall be maintained in place by the applicant until the completion of all land clearing and grading activities at the subject parcel. The Planning Department offers the following resolution for the board's consideration. Planning Board Resolution number blank 2018, subdivision preliminary approval for number 1182, map of Roosevelt Park, 1904. Whereas the Planning Board has considered the request for preliminary approval by trust on will of Lattice D. Custer, care of Roger Budd, to subdivide 2.49 acres into 4 lots. Now therefore be it first resolved that the Planning Board hereby approves the preliminary subdivision number 1182, map of Roosevelt Park, subject to the following conditions. 1, an erosion sediment control plan must be filed with the final plat application. 2, the final map shall reflect the following. A, concrete curbs to be installed on Lake Avenue as directed by the Highway Department. B, the 2x2-foot catch basin on Lake Avenue to be updated to a Type 1 catch basin and moved out of the radius to Lake Avenue. The basin should be connected to the existing pool under the handicapped ramp and to additional pool in the right-of-way as directed by Highway Department. C, the ramp at the corner of Lake Avenue and Roosevelt Avenue should be an ADA compliant ramp. Second resolve, that preliminary approval shall be valid for a 6-month period to expire on February 15th, 2019.
Anybody present on behalf of the applicant on this matter?
I am, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, my name is Terry Quinn. Represent the applicant today in the application to subdivide
Just
the
give
property.
your business address, please.
Sure, 305 East Main Street, Smithtown, New York, 11787. Mr. Chairman, the subject property, as Matt said, the subject property is located on the northwest corner of Roseville and Lake Avenue. It's, at the present time, it's slightly less than 2.5 acres, all right? It's approved by a single-family home, which is occupied by the beneficiary of the trust. Our application basically is seeking permission from the board to subdivide this into 4 lots. Lot 1 on there is approximately 22,000 square feet. Lot 2, which is the one occupied by the house, is approximately 32,000 square feet. Lot 3 is approximately 26,000 square feet, and Lot 4 is approximately 27,000 square feet. These are both all R21 zoning district. They are in full compliance with that, as far as I know. I believe they are. No variance is needed. Basically, we've used, I believe that as submitted, our proposal as submitted is consistent with the intended use of this property, is compatible with the neighborhood. The neighborhood is many, it's all single-family homes, and many of them are 21 zoning, similar to what we're asking you to do here. We've used our best efforts to maintain the trees as best we can and the vegetation, and we've submitted that tree preservation and land clearance plan to the environmental waterways, and they've approved that. Basically, there's no high water problems on this property, I don't believe. There's no open water features that might be affected by the subdivision. There's no cultural resources nearby the subdivision that might be affected by the subdivision. There's been recent subdivisions of similar pieces of property in the area, one just north of it and one northwest of it, which was some time ago, but I believe so there wouldn't be any undesirable precedent by approving our plan here. Again, I don't think there's any safety and health issues because the lots exceed the minimum lots that the Department of Health would require, and I would ask the board to act favorably on our application to subdivide the property.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anybody in the audience who wishes to be heard in this matter? If you do, please come up to the microphone and give your name and address.
Hello, Teresa Donnelly, 164 Lake Avenue. I live next to
That's in St. James?
St. James, yes. I live next door to the person who's selling off her lot. My backyard is part of her lot, I guess. It's, there's a fence line. So I'm kind of opposed to 4 houses going up in that area because
So if you're facing your house from Lake Avenue, you're on the right of this property?
yes.
Okay.
Yes, so to put 4 properties there, 1 on lake as well, and then 3 behind? Is that what they're proposing?
2 behind. 2 of them actually would be
You're
on the road,
proposing
though.
to put one in between the existing residence and your residence, if I understand that your residence is the one immediately
Yes.
next to that, on Lake. So there'll be 1 on Lake and then
2
2
on
on Roseville behind the existing residence, facing on Roseville.
Their address will be Roseville.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
And then they're gonna be opening up the street behind me?
I don't
Is that,
know anything about
it
any
was
opening
read
of the
that it was
street.
gonna be- That
Anne-Marie?
was gonna be ended, right?
Yeah.
That's part of our proposal. Yeah, that was the Anne Marie drive was gonna end.
my problem is just the privacy of the woods, having to look at large houses in my backyard. We have, I think that lot is 4 acres actually, in its entirety with her property. And they're only selling off 2.5?
No, that property is 2.459 acres.
So it's about 2.5 acres. And they're gonna ask to subdivide it into 4 lots. It looks like the lot that the existing home on just from looking at the drawing of it, is gonna be the biggest lot in terms of square footage. And the other lots are all gonna be about 100 feet wide and about, looks like about, maybe 217 feet on the lot on Lake
Yeah.
long, and 257 feet and 266 feet long or deep on the lots on Roseville.
Are these ranch-style homes, or are they large?
I don't know if they got to the
Colonials?
point, when, we're here only to decide whether or not they can get a preliminary approval for a subdivision. So I don't think we're at the point yet as far as whether the houses are designed, if the applicant knows what type of houses they intend to put there. That might be something that he can address, but it's not really what's, the style of the houses is not really something that we address here at this point.
Oh, I see.
Will be
Okay.
addressed at some point.
Just my
and
concern is
probably
is
not by
the
us.
privacy portion of it. They're taking down all that woods, and then my lot is now just wide open, where I just,
Well, they're gonna mark the trees that are gonna be staying, so that there's a plan that's already been put in place, so the property will be marked, the town will go in and check that out, and they're pretty well on top of it to make sure that they don't blatantly make a farm out of it and clear everything, so.
I think it
there's-
did say something about there
Right.
was a land clearing
Right,
plan.
there's a plan
They just
here in
can't go in
place.
there, and they're not just gonna go in there and like mow everything down.
that's not what I want,
They
yeah.
have to submit a plan, they have to submit a plan to
Okay.
the town as to what they are going to take and what they are not going to take.
Okay.
And I believe that's already been done, and that part of it is already been passed upon, and it's part of the, approval.
It actually says, if the land clearing plan provides for the retention of a significant amount of existing trees and natural vegetation upon development of the subject parcel.
So they had to submit a land clearing plan as part of this application. And our memo that the planning department gave to us tells us that that plan calls for the preservation of a large proportion of the existing trees.
okay. So I know my fence line in my backyard, I think it's short of maybe 6 feet into, my property goes 6 feet into her lot. I actually pulled back my fence to avoid pulling down some trees. So that's the other issue. It's about 6 feet, 6.5 feet,
Onto the other
What,
property?
yes.
You should-
Your fence is on their property,
No, my fence is on my property, but
Okay.
6.5 feet of my property is still,
behind the fence.
yes.
Well, they can
But-
only go, they can't build on your property.
Right, it'll be staked, so they'll come across.
That's the,
and
that's the
they'll-
issue I'm talking about, is all the
Right.
tree lines, and
Well,
that's
they
why I
can't-
didn't
if you-
take them down to
If
begin
there are
with.
trees on your property,
Yes,
in between your fence or in front of your fence, in between your fence and the property line, they can't go on your property and take down your trees. Their tree clearing plan and preservation plan addresses what trees they can and cannot take down on their property, but they can't go in there and take your property.
okay,
And you'll see it too, when it's staked out, so once the property gets staked, you'll be able to look over your fence and realize, okay, I'll walk through it.
Yeah, they have
I'll
to
walk
measure this
along-
all out.
Walk along
Okay.
your 6 feet line and see what is staked there and you'll see what's there. And
okay.
the trees will be marked as well.
And when is the anticipated project supposed to begin?
Oh, we're pretty far
If I wanted to
away.
sell my house before this all
We're pretty
happens?
far away from, like
Okay.
breaking ground.
Yes,
We're pretty far away from, this is the preliminary approval, then there has to be a final subdivision approval. So you're quite a ways away from that. And after that approval, then that just gives them approval to subdivide the property from one lot and tax lot into 4. Then as far as what's actually gonna go there, there's a whole nother set of review there that deals with the size of the houses, the style of the houses, that's more towards the end of the process.
okay,
But
I
you're-
understand.
I don't wanna give you an estimate because these things have different,
Timelines,
you know,
Shelf life.
timelines,
Yeah,
but
I get it.
it's a while. This is the preliminary approval, there has to be a final approval, then, you know, site plans have to be submitted, there's a lot involved.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, but rest assured that they're not allowed to go on your property and take down your trees, whether they're on your side of the fence or their side of the fence, as long as they're on your land,
Got it,
okay?
thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question.
But then we'll bring the guy back, the representative back up, and anybody can ask him. Yes, sir, give your name and address.
Jeremy Hackett, 12 Anne Marie Drive, St. James, New York, 11780. I was just curious, the tree clearing plan, is that
Yeah.
that plan?
I was gonna bring it to Mrs. Donnelly's attention.
Great.
Tree preservation plan shows all trees to
Ma'am, if you want to come back up again so you can get a
Yeah.
better look at the tree preservation plan, he's going to explain it. We probably have a drawing of it. If anybody else wants to come up so they can get a better view, but if you're gonna speak, you have to give your name and address.
Is there
You're
a
just
s-
gonna look, you don't have to say anything.
Is there a set, because on Anne Marie Drive, I'm just curious, is there a setback or anything that would be required?
Yeah, it's a 50, because it's technically a front yard, because they're off a road, it's, in this zoning district, it's 50 feet.
So if they put up a fence, do they have a setback on the fence, or could they
They can't
put
put a
a?
6-foot fence in there, but they can't put anything 4 feet or less.
So in a front yard, you can't exceed 4 feet
Yeah.
behind. So if
Okay.
they wanted a 6 or a 5, they would have to
Go 50 feet.
this setback. And what this plan's showing is trees to be removed are shown with the red dots.
Okay,
The trees to remain are shown in the white dots. It shows the encroachment that you were talking about, that's showing your fence into your property. So they're aware of that as well. So there are trees, you know, along your property line shown to remain. So this whole area is shown to remain, and then where they propose a house, the red dots, the 3 homes are proposed. And then the corner house has the largest lot, and that's got all those large pines along the
Yes.
avenue. Those are all shown to remain.
And the house would be between her house and my house.
There is a house
About the same
proposed.
location as hers, setback, over the lake.
Yes.
Looks like they're gonna make it parallel to your house.
Okay.
Right.
And also, sir, just so you know,
yeah,
the map that we have in front of us, if you're on Anne Marie Drive, so the lot number 4 would be the one that might be backing up into
Correct.
your area.
yeah.
That lot, according to the map we have in front of us, is almost 267 feet deep
Right.
from Roseville. And as you can see, if you have the map in front of you, the house is closer to Roseville.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't have, the exact figure, but
It'd
it
be
looks
far
like
away.
it's at least 1/3, at least 2/3 of the 267 feet are behind the house.
Right,
So the house is probably gonna be at least 200 feet, maybe, from the property line.
okay. All right, thank you.
Look.
Oh, is there another person that wants to come up, I think?
Good evening, Board. My name is Lawrence Northorn. I live on 16 Anne Marie Drive in St. James. I'm opposed to the subdivision. Reason being is because where we are located for multiple reasons. Number one is that Lot 4, I believe we're talking about, the one that's going to potentially connect Anne Marie with Roseville. We're talking about 2 frontages, correct? One on Anne Marie, one on Roseville.
The proposal calls for adding 1 house on Lake and 2 houses on Roseville.
Right, and then 2 more houses on Roseville, forward facing, so, but no frontage on Anne Marie, is that correct?
Well, you mean like the house is gonna be facing Anne Marie? No, the house is facing Roseville.
Correct, but would there be able to be a driveway to Anne
There's
Marie?
not, it's not intended to be access from Anne Marie onto either of these lots.
Okay, so there's
Anne
no,
Marie's gonna end.
Anne Marie's still gonna end, okay.
Right.
So, the concern that I have is, number one, is that there's especially my property, I feel like I'm the lowest property on Anne Marie Drive, and there's a huge drainage issue over there. We had our basement flood once already, so that's a huge concern for me, is the water runoff, okay? Number one, during construction, number two, after construction. So that's one of the things. The other is safety, especially during the construction. And the third is, listen, we moved to St. James about 3 years ago because of the beautiful property, the pristine trees. And we came from Massapequa. We wanted to get away from big city. We wanted to get away from house on top of house on top of house. And I feel like with this proposal, we potentially could be right back there. So,
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I think there's another person, but, and Mr. Quinn, we'll ask you to come back up again, because I think you can address some of the comments of the residents, and some of the board members might have some more questions for you.
I apologize. I came straight from the gym.
Your name and address, please?
Nicole Northorn, 16 Anne Marie Drive in St. James. So I'm in opposition of this subdivision, and I don't know if it's meaningful to anybody, but we bought this house at the end of Anne Marie Drive, right here. Okay, my house is tucked into their property. So there's, what is this, 276.26 feet.
No,
What
that's
is
the
this?
whole length.
Then what is this?
276.
Okay, so what is this? here.
This is 50,
so I'd Okay. say
that's about
Okay, so 55 feet. So 55 feet of the front of my house, landlocked, with this other piece of property, where right now it's completely trees in front of my house. It's tucked into the back of this. So they're gonna be able to put a 4 or a 6 foot fence right in front of my property and clear. I mean, I see the plan of clearing trees. It's not, I mean, this is not the reason why I bought here. The reason why I bought here is because it's private and it's set back and there's no one in front of my house. I understand it's not a court, I understand that this is their property, but this part, I mean, this doesn't affect anybody else as much as it affects my family. And the reason why I feel that way is because no other property is right on top of this property, forward facing. This is a huge, besides my husband, explained to you guys that we got 90 gallons of water in our basement because there is a huge drainage issue. Huge drainage issue. We had to spend over $15,000 putting drains all around our house, digging, excavating, adding soil. There's a big problem there. But other than that, this is not gonna be cool because 55 feet of the front of my property is potentially gonna have a fence in front of it. When that never, and if no other property in the surrounding area is connected to this property the way that my property is forward facing. So I hope you take that into consideration when you guys, does not work for me, especially with this tree clearing plan. My husband and I actually made a mistake and planted trees to beautify instead of putting a fence, and we put a portion, I don't know what portion of it is, but we put, in order to beautify it, arborvitaes, and it is on that, instead of using the property line, we used a street line. So that was our mistake. And, I know about encroachment and all this other stuff. We're not interested in encroaching on anybody else's land. We want to keep the beauty, the beauty of the property and, increase the trees in the area and not clear all of that land. So this right here, the fact that there are, 6 trees left on that side of the property I'm not happy.
So ma'am,
So
if you're on
there's
Anne Marie,
3 here, there's 2, right now, if I tell you there's tree on top of tree on top of tree, there must be 400 trees in this area right now.
ma'am,
And-
if you're on Anne Marie, facing the end of Anne Marie, your house is the last one on the right?
Yes,
Okay, all right.
yes, all
It's
the
good
way
looking
at
at
the
the
block.
top view.
So we are, basically this is my dwelling right here. I'm directly the front of my home. You walk out of my front door. I don't see a road. I don't see anything. All I see is trees. And that's the reason why we bought this piece of property. And we paid significant amount of money to live here in taxes. Total, our taxes almost $29,000. I understand 18 of that goes to the schools. However, we bought here for the long term. The property was in turmoil when we bought it, within the town of Smithtown and everything. We are super responsible people. If this is the plan for the trees back here, and there's no guarantees in life. The new people that buy the dwelling in the front facing portion of Roosevelt, lot number 4, which you are proposing, they could come in and knock down all the trees. They can get rid of the 12 trees that you guys, that the environmental, people do things on their own. People go rogue, and I cannot allow this to happen. So if I have to chain myself to a tree, I'm a tree hugger. And the reason why we bought here, we moved from Massapequa, which is now, we get flooded in Sandy. There's no trees there. So every single tree south of Merrick Road in Massapequa in the town of Oyster Bay is shaped like a bonsai tree, and it looks ridiculous. And the reason why we moved here is because I fell in love with the trees. And if this needs to be addressed, because this is the front of my house. So, I have to say that. I apologize I'm dressed like this. I try to stay healthy. But, it's something to think about. I'm very concerned about it. And if it moves forward with this amount of trees, there's going to be a huge problem for me and my family. So I just wanted to, put that out there. Any questions?
Thank you. Can you
No,
spell
we
your
don't
last
ask,
name?
we don't ask you guys questions.
Sorry, Northorn, it's Northorn.
Good afternoon, Board.
Good
Mr.
evening,
Chairman,
actually.
Mr. Quinn, thank you so much, for your plans. But
You
I
gotta
did,
State your name and address, please,
Tyrone
sir.
Clark, 164 Lake Avenue, St. James. I lived 30 years in Nassau County, and this is what we have to deal with. And I moved out here to not to deal with this anymore, and this is what's going on. You're pinning houses on top of each other. That's not what this neighborhood is all about. No good. You can't do this, all right?
Where's your home in relation to the existing house that's there?
164, right next door. Teresa Donnelly. I'm with Teresa Donnelly.
Oh, yeah, okay, you're in the same
Yes,
residence.
we're in the same house,
Okay.
164, right next door. All right, I understand Mr. Quinn and his client wants to build a couple of houses, okay? But no good. You're putting too much in too small of a space. It's no good. And what's gonna happen, like that young lady just said, you're gonna keep your trees that you're gonna keep. What's gonna happen? The homeowners are gonna go in and go, I don't want this one, I don't want this one, I don't want this one. We're gonna be sitting on our backyard and look at the back of a home. And that's not why we live here. That's not why you pay the high taxes here. That's not good. You can't do it. Mr. Quinn, could you provide everybody with plans and what your plans are?
Sir, you have to address the board. There's no conversations to people in the audience.
Okay, could you?
Any of the plans,
Could
any
you
of the
guys?
pl- any of the plans that have been submitted can be reviewed at the
Okay,
planning
well, that's what we
department.
wanna see. We wanna see
Everything's
what's
on
going on.
file.
Because we see what's going on here, but
And then
like,
the tree clearing plan has been produced. It's on the board.
yeah, I mean,
There's a
they're
map
gonna.
that's also on the board.
And then what happens when these homes are built? And there's just 6, 7, 8, 9 beautiful trees up there, and the homeowners decide, you know what, I don't want them anymore, and
And
they
they
get rid
can
of
do
them.
that. Once,
They could do it.
once this is done, the homeowner can take anything down.
Absolutely, absolutely. So do I want to sit in my backyard? That was a beautiful backyard, and now I got to look at the back of somebody's house? That's not why we moved here. No good.
Anybody else in the audience wish to be heard? Okay, Mr. Quinn, do you want to come back up and address some of the residents' concerns? And also, I believe,
That was fresh in my mind, so I'll address
also, I
it.
believe there may be some questions from the board. But first, you can address the residents' concerns.
I mean, the tree is, the tree preservation and land clearance plan calls for no trees to be cut down where Anne Marie Court ends, all right? Obviously, if someone buys the home, they can cut the trees down. But Mr. Bud could go cut the trees down tomorrow. He doesn't plan on that, but he could do that tomorrow. I mean, there's no guarantee that if they're not your trees, that the person's not gonna cut them down. But I mean, they're not gonna clear the trees.
If it's that person's property, they could
Right.
cut down the trees, or they could add more trees. Anybody's free to add more trees if they want. That's up to them. It's their property, and just like the residents, if they want to add more trees, they could do that too, on their property.
And the other thing is, these are R21 zone properties. They're not, cookie cutter properties. They're on a decent sized lot, similar to, I believe, most of these people's lots probably, or something similar. I mean, the neighborhood is full of these houses, full of houses on R21 zoning, full of single family homes, and this is just 3 more. I mean, again, I understand their concerns. There's always problems when this is gonna be done. Mr. Bud is gonna try to be the best neighbor he can. He tried to be the best neighbor he could when he submitted the tree preservation plan. But, again, as you say and as they say, once this sold, who knows? But the original plan is to keep all those trees in the backs of the properties on lots 3 and 4, which back on Roseville. The other thing is, I don't know why the drainage is a problem, but it's not caused by Mr. Bud, and I don't think he has, obviously during construction, if there's drainage problems, that's another problem, but at the present time, I don't think Mr. Bud's property or the trust property is causing that drainage problem, and I don't see how we can address that in this type of hearing.
Well,
I mean,
the drainage may be improved by this subdivision, that they change the grading, it may not. And as far as the trees are concerned, certainly when we get to past the final site plan, certainly there can be requirements that there be a buffer, for example, between the property line and then where the neighbors live, and that no trees in whatever they want to say, 6 feet, 10 feet, 20 feet could be taken down. But that's later on. Right now, we're only doing preliminary subdivision.
when Mr. Bud had Mr. Hildebrand prepare that tree preservation and land clearance plan, he did that.
to create natural buffers. You know, again, when the final building permits and site plans are issued, that may change, it may be more
They
buffer,
could end
it
up
may
with
be
a
less.
a buffer of 10 or 20 feet where you can't remove any trees within 20 feet of the
Right.
property line.
Right.
We're not there yet, though.
And if that happened, Mr. Bud would be as happy as these people, because that's the way he set it up. He set it up that he would be a good neighbor. His cousin who lives in the house is gonna still be living there. Mr. Bud lives around the corner. He certainly doesn't wanna, harm his neighbors or get his neighbors pissed off. But again, he has, unfortunately, he's run out of money. His cousin needs money in the trust, and that's the purpose of selling the property. If he could keep the properties for his cousin to live there, by all means he would do it. But unfortunately, those different circumstances call for these measures. Thank you.
Any questions from any member of the board of Mr. Quinn?
Yes. Mr. Quinn, I know on the map that you presented to the board this evening, at the rear of Lot 4, which borders on Anne Marie Drive, I noticed that there's a 50-foot setback line, which could be for possibly a future home on a Lot 5. That concerns me, and I think it would concern many members here from Anne Marie Drive this evening. Would you be willing to stipulate that Lot 4 could not be subdivided at a later date in our approvals?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. These plans are building 3 houses and keeping the one they have, and he'll stipulate.
No, it's prevent them from splitting
Right.
Lot 4 and having a house facing onto Anne
Absolutely.
Marie.
Correct.
Absolutely.
I think that's also something that should, if you're doing that, should be done at final approval, not preliminary.
Doesn't have to be done tonight.
It just should be part of the final approval. This
Right.
is only the preliminary.
That's what I thought, but absolutely, if that's obviously a concern of these people or you, Mr. Chase, absolutely, we would open that.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Yes, actually, you can, and so can Mr. Carlo. Either of you want to make any comments to any of the suggestions or otherwise? Go right ahead.
I'd just like to explain to the board as well as the public that a lot of thought did go into the subdivision. And tree preservation was one of the highest priorities on this subdivision. There were numerous alternatives. One was connecting Anne Marie Drive down to Roseville Avenue, which would have cleared a 50-foot wide swath along the west side of the property. The next alternative was
But there wouldn't be no house there then, right?
there was still enough lot area to squeeze the 4 homes, but it
Between the existing house that's on Roseville now and the house they want to put there, they want to extend the road?
right, lot 2 would have had a
Right, it would have been
smaller,
shifted over. Yep, I see
smaller
it.
rear yard. There's a 31,000 square foot lot. The second alternative was extending the cul-de-sac of Anne Marie Drive. If you notice, Anne Marie Drive shows a temporary turnaround.
Yeah, we see that.
That
on
was
the picture.
always intended to be extended. Well, in order to do that, you would have been clearing whatever trees are shown at the rear of lot number 4. So that's directly in front of the Northorn's house. We thought that was not the best thing. The highway department typically likes a larger turnaround, garbage trucks, highway trucks. Fire trucks, but they bought into this. They agreed that this was probably the best for the area to preserve the highest number of trees. We're not extending any new roads. We're not creating more infrastructure. We're trying to preserve as many trees as possible. So I just would like the board to know that that was a very high consideration in this subdivision design.
And also, I think what you may be saying as well is that if this proposal is denied, then there may be another proposal that they would come forward with later at some point, next week, next year, that could involve, I think what you're saying, it could involve the 2 houses on Roseville shifted to Lake and perhaps seeking to extend Anne Marie Drive through.
Correct.
And this proposal prohibits that from happening. Anne Marie Drive is going to end, and it's going to stay ended at the back of lot number 4, correct?
Correct. Provides the largest lots and preserves the most
So
trees.
it actually eliminates the possibility of Anne Marie Drive being extended to Roseville, which
Correct.
I'm sure everybody in Anne Marie Drive would like to see that end there and not have the cut through from Roseville onto their block.
Yep.
Okay. Anything else?
No, I just wanted to know,
Okay.
let the board know how we came to this design.
Yeah, and this is also for the record, this is a,
You gotta come up
this
there,
is only,
please.
this is a preliminary approval. There'll be a further hearing for a final approval down the road.
So, Mr.
Just give your name and address for the record because it's being taken down.
Tyrone Clark, 164 Lake Avenue,
I'm sorry, say that again?
St. James.
Say that again?
Tyrone Clark, 164 Lake Avenue, St. James. So, Mr. Quinn's plan is to build 3 homes, correct?
The current plan is to build
And
3
to
homes.
keep the current home on the property.
Correct.
Yes.
That current home is probably close to 75 years old. So the aesthetics of that area is going to look good with that one ranch sitting there with 3 brand new homes around it. I disagree. I'm totally opposed against this whole plan. Have them go back to the planning board, replan everything, and do what you need to do to make it look aesthetically correct for the neighborhood. That's what my plan is.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other comments from the members of the public, from the applicant's attorney? Any other questions from any member of the board? Seeing none, I move in the matter of planning, in the matter of map of Roseville Park, St. James, 1182, to close the public hearing at this time.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? None. The hearing is closed. I further move in the matter of Roseville, map of Roseville Park, St. James, number 1182, that we adopt the resolution as read in accordance with the recommendation of the planning department. Oh, I'm sorry. We have a secret before that. So before we get to the resolution, with respect to the secret portion of the resolution, I move that we adopt the resolution as read with respect to the secret negative declaration.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? None? So the secret negative is adopted. Now to the resolution itself, to the merits. I move on the application that we adopt the resolution as read in accordance with the recommendation of the planning department.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None? The resolution is adopted. The preliminary approval is granted. Thank you.
Alright, the next item on the agenda is the telecommunications application, TC 2018-03. This application was first heard at the July 18th, 2018 Planning Board meeting. At that meeting, the Planning Department read into the record a report outlining the application. In addition to the Planning Department's report, the applicant provided the board with additional information and called up their engineer to speak on behalf of the application. At the conclusion of the testimony, the Planning Board closed the public hearing and recessed the matter to the August 15th, 2018 meeting in order to allow the Department of Environment and Waterways to complete the secret review process. Since the July 18th, 2018 meeting, the Department of Environment and Waterways has completed the secret review process and recommends a secret and negative declaration. The Department of Environment and Waterways offers the following resolution for the board's consideration. Planning Board Resolution Number blank 2018, recommended secret declaration, special exception petition TC 2018-03. Whereas the Planning Board has considered the secret recommendation from the Department of Environment and Waterways for TC 2018-03, New York SMSA Limited Partnership doing business as Verizon Wireless, now therefore be it first resolved that the Planning Board of the Town of Smithtown hereby issues a secret negative declaration, determination of non-significance. An EIS is not necessary in the matter of special exception number TC 2018-03, Verizon at 330 Motor Parkway, Tier 2, by New York SMSA Limited Partnership doing business as Verizon Wireless for the following reasons. A, the proposal does not appear to significantly threaten any unique or highly valuable environmental or cultural resources as identified in or regulated by the Environmental Conservation Law of the State of New York or Smithtown Town Code. B, the proposal does not involve the physical modification of construction upon lands which suffer from any severe environmental development constraints. No high groundwater, no poor soil properties, and no unmanageable slopes. C, the proposal appears to be consistent with the planned use of the parcel, incompatible with neighboring land uses. And D, the proposal appears to be consistent with the location, site, design, and safety requirements of Chapter 242 of the Smithtown Town Code. The Planning Department recommends approval and offers the following resolution for the board's consideration. Planning Board Resolution Number blank 2018, Tier 2 Personal Wireless Service Facility Approval for Special Exception Petition TC 2018-03. Whereas the planning board has considered the special exception application by New York SMSA Limited Partnership doing business as Verizon Wireless for a personal wireless service facility, now therefore be it first resolved that the planning board hereby approves special exception petition application TC 2018-03, New York SMSA Limited Partnership doing business as Verizon Wireless for a personal wireless service facility pursuant to chapters 242 and 322-30.3 of the Smithtown Town Code, subject to the following conditions. 1. Appropriate signage shall be installed on all access points to the roof that provides the following information. A. Notification that a telecommunications facility that produces radio frequency emissions is present on the roof. B. Identification of the radio frequency emission range. C. Contact information to arrange for shutoff of the facility in the event that it is necessary for any person to be on the roof.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Board. India DeCarmine from Amato Law Group, 666 Old Country Road, Garden City, for the applicant in this application, New York SMSA Limited Partnership, doing business as Verizon Wireless.
So you've heard the analysis and the recommendations of the planning department in the proposed resolution?
Yes, I have.
And you're in agreement with the resolution as it was read?
Yes, I
And
am.
the conditions set forth therein?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, any member of the public wish to be heard on this matter? Any questions from any member of the board on this matter? Then we have a motion to close the public hearing, please.
Did we close it?
Oh, it's closed already, the
Yeah,
hearing
the
was
hearing's
closed,
It
right.
was closed
Then
last
we
time.
need a motion on the secret negative.
In the matter of special exception petition TC 2018-03, and move that we adopt the secret negative declaration as recommended by the planning department.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, none? The secret negative is adopted. And now on the resolution itself?
In the matter of special exception petition TC 2018-03, I move that we adopt the resolution as read in accordance with the recommendation of the planning department.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, none? The resolution is adopted and the application is approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item is number 1181, Gemini Landing 2 in Fort Salonga, a recommendation to the BZA. At the last planning board meeting, July 18, 2018, questions were raised regarding the above referenced subdivision's relation to a previous subdivision application on this property, number 1143, map of Gemini Landing, and regarding the planning department's reasons in its July 13, 2018 memo for recommending approval to the Board of Zoning Appeals. The planning department offers the following in answer to those questions. The pending subdivision proposal is substantially the same as the previous application, which was submitted to the planning board on August 5, 2009. The planning board denied that application on May 2, 2012. The applicant filed an Article 78 seeking a determination from the Supreme Court that the planning board's decision was arbitrary and capricious. The Supreme Court found in favor of the planning board, and the applicant subsequently appealed the Supreme Court's decision. The appellate division upheld the Supreme Court's decision. It is unclear why the applicant was never directed between 2009 to 2012 to apply to the BZA for a variance to increase the yield of the property from 1 to 2 lots. However, it seems likely that the planning department and the planning board relied on a section of the zoning ordinance that gave the planning board the authority to increase the yield of steeply sloped properties under certain circumstances. That provision of the zoning ordinance was deleted April 4, 2017, approximately 6 months before the pending subdivision application was submitted. The pending subdivision application was submitted to the planning board on November 15, 2017. On December 6, 2017, the planning department informed the applicant that variances would be required from the BZA to increase the yield from 1 to 2 and alter environmentally sensitive land. The planning department also noted that the subdivision is substantially similar to the one denied by the planning board and stated, if you are successful in obtaining the necessary variances from the Board of Zoning Appeals, the planning department plans to recommend that access to the property come from the unnamed private road opposed to Berry Hill Drive. The applicant submitted the required variance application to the BZA on May 21, 2018. The BZA heard the requests on June 26, 2018, and subsequently requested a recommendation from the planning board pursuant to Section 277-6 of Town Law. The planning department's July 13, 2018 memo to the planning board evaluated the variances pending before the BZA solely with respect to the planning board's mission, pursuant to Section 2771 of the town law to evaluate whether the subject property can be used safely for building purposes without danger to the health or peril from fire, flood, damage, drainage, or other menace to the neighboring properties or the public health, safety, and welfare. The recommendation does not examine the details of the proposed layout, nor does it examine the requested variances with respect to the 5 area variance considerations described in Section 267-B of Town Law, as the BZA is tasked with evaluating the requested variance with respect to these criteria. In light of this information, the Planning Department recommends amending the proposed resolution as follows. Planning Board Resolution number blank 2018, Board of Zoning Appeals variance recommendation for number 1181, map of Gemini Landing 2. Whereas the Planning Board has considered the request of the Board of Zoning Appeals for a recommendation regarding variances to permit environmentally sensitive land to be altered for Lot 1, slopes in excess of 15%, permit a structure within 10 feet of any slope 25% or greater for Lot 1, and to reduce the minimum lot area from 43,560 square feet to 13,931 square feet for Lot 1 within the subdivision known as number 1181, map of Gemini Landing 2. Now therefore be it first resolved that the Planning Board hereby recommends that the Board of Zoning Appeals approve the variances associated with the subdivision known as number 1181, map of Gemini Landing for the following reasons. 1. It appears the property can be used safely for 2 dwellings without danger to the health or peril from fire, flood, drainage, or other menace to neighboring properties or the public health, safety, and welfare, and that A. The subdivision could be designed in a way to limit the regrading of steep slopes. B. Including steep slopes, the average lot of the 2 lots is approximately 1.25 acres per lot. This is in character with several of the other houses in the area. And C. There is adequate frontage on the adjacent right-of-ways to build 1 additional house. Second, resolve that this recommendation pertains solely to the determination of yield and not to the proposed lot layout, road access, extent of regrading, building location, public improvements, or other aspects of subdivision design within the purview of the Planning Board. And third, resolve that nothing contained herein shall be construed or deemed as implicitly or explicitly approving or endorsing on the merits any subsequent request for approval of any subdivision for this property, whether or not the request arises out of any variances granted by the Board of Zoning Appeals for said property.
So, basically, I think, just want to make sure that everybody is on the same page. We had some references the last time this was on to a court decision, but I think what Mr. Colado just read into the record indicates that 2012 denial, which this board made, was for a subdivision application, which was then challenged in court and upheld. The denial was upheld. But what we have before us now is not a subdivision application. This is just a request from the Board of Zoning Appeals for us to give them a recommendation on the variances, correct?
Correct.
So this is just our recommendation to the BZA. They could approve the variances or deny the variances regardless of what our recommendation is. They just want some input from us.
Correct.
And what you read at the end there was kind of like a reservation of rights. We're making it clear that by recommending to the BZA that they grant the variances, which of course is up to them, it's not to be interpreted as an implicit approval or that we're going to approve or not approve any further application on this property, including a subdivision application, if and when it's made.
Correct.
All right.
Good evening, Chairman Earhart, ladies and gentlemen of the board. My name is Gordon of Stojic. I reside at 43 Meadow Glen Road in Smithtown, Fort Salonga, and I'm the owner of Gemini Landing 2. I'd like to have my architect, Michael Morbillo, speak on my behalf.
Certainly. Thank you, sir. Please give your name and business address for the record, please.
Sure. My name is Michael Morbillo. My firm is Inspire Design Group. My office is located at 273 Lake Avenue in St. James. We're following up today. I believe at the last meeting, there was discussion about going out to the site to walk the site by the board members. Just to recap, we do want to just stay focused on the fact that this is for a recommendation to the zoning board. We understand that the merits of accessing the property and layout still need to be discussed and determined, and we intend to review this extensively with the planning department. There's been the last meeting I mentioned about we've had problems over the years of getting access through the existing right-of-way and developing it, so that's been an ongoing issue. And I believe there have been some changes with new property owners, so we are looking to evaluate that further with the planning department as far as our options. But before you tonight, we're discussing the recommendation to the zoning board. At the last meeting, there was a letter introduced by one of the neighbors, and which we didn't have a chance to evaluate at the time, and we did have a chance to evaluate it. So at this time, I'd like to. That was the only testimony that was offered. The other folks that came up and spoke, I was able to answer directly, and I'll just answer that letter. And then if the board has any questions or further comments for me at that time, I'd be happy to answer them if that's okay.
Certainly, go right ahead.
Sure. So the letter, which was from David Scrow, who lives a few houses away on 27 Woodhull Lane, was dated July 18th, 2018. He was against the application, and had also stated that some of the neighbors had asked him to come and speak on their behalf. There was also some neighbors who came up and spoke. I'm not sure if he was representing them also. Some of the statements that he made in the letter was that the request was for the steep slope variance was unprecedented in the adjacent area. He cited that the overall percentage of steep slope was much lower in the letter than it is for my client's property. And I would like to submit some information to refute that statement. So if I can at this time, I'd just like to hand up some exhibits to the board.
You'll make those part of the record.
Sure. So I'm just gonna keep one for myself, and then we'll just spread some of these out a little bit.
Thank you.
So we have a few of them. So, yeah. Basically, what I've handed in is the subdivision map for the adjacent Berry Hill at Fort Salonga. And, yeah.
Thank you.
You know, on that, in that subdivision, there was a lot, an analysis of steep slopes, which were for for several of the lots. There was 10 lots. And Mr. Scrow's analysis was an overall average, which he provided. And I believe the precedent was set for one lot in there. And I've highlighted that lot, and I've notated that represented a 62% area of slopes greater than 15%. So his statement that this is unprecedented, I believe is inaccurate. So I just wanted to put that in for the record.
Just for the record,
Yeah.
the applicant's representative has handed up what appears to be a two-page document. One is looks like a table that says lot areas, and there's about 10 lots listed on it, and it's attached to what appears to be a map. I'm just gonna ask that the one that is in the possession of the planning department staff members now, that become part of their file and part of the official record. Go ahead, thank you.
So basically, we feel that there is a precedent. We're speaking about, to expand on that with steep slopes. The zoning board gets many requests for environmentally sensitive lands applications, a lot of them relative to steep slopes, a lot of them relative to high groundwater. And, having dealt with the town for many decades now, I mean, my sense of this request to review environmentally sensitive lands is to really flag a property to see if, listen, this isn't something that you just go right through. We should take special care and attention to this property and see if there is an impact. And even with the original subdivision application, there was, the environmental, Department of the DEW was not opposed to the application, and it was not disapproved on for environmental reasons. And so, we understand that, this is a necessary part of the zoning law, that these types of properties have to be flagged and scrutinized. I am in agreement with the planning department's recommendation that this is not going to have an impact. There are many homes in the area. Fort Salonga is a hilly area. There's a lot of hilly areas throughout Smithtown, and this is not going to be creating an environmental impact or a detriment to the adjacent lands. So I wanted to put that onto the record. The other items that are talked about, talk about substantiality and other things. Again, I think that's addressed in the fact that, these type of environmentally sensitive variances are granted routinely. And for that reason, that they're there to be flagged. It's not so much how substantial. We've seen 100%, lots that are 100% environmentally sensitive get approved for variances due to high groundwater. So the numbers can be certainly misleading, but I think the record shows that the Environmental Division is reviewing these and determining that it's not an environmental impact. The lot that I did highlight is actually directly adjacent to my client's property. So, it's just directly to the east. So it is an adjacent property, the one that's referenced that has the 62% steep slopes. And just as a last item on this, part of the thing, one of the comments that he made was that, it's not in character with the neighborhood. And, the character, as we hear in other applications here tonight, 20 years ago, 10-lot subdivision was put up next to my client. He had a nice, beautiful woods there. He knew the homeowner, used to walk his dog in there, used to take strolls. It was a beautiful, pristine piece of property. And, when it went to be subdivided, he wasn't happy. But he worked in the construction trades. He worked in that industry, and he knows what things are as of right. And, he didn't come to hearings and complain about it. Mostly, I think, he would have felt hypocritical, I think, that, knowing how the laws work, to come in and to try and come against that subdivision. So, I think that subdivision was done sensibly, and we still have merits that have to be discussed with the planning department, and we're not looking to address those tonight as far as the access. We realize that's something still to be addressed. Mr. Scrow put in the letter. He stated that he's a member of the Long Island Builders Institute, and I know many members of the Long Island Builders Institute, and they're probably responsible for putting up hundreds of homes throughout Long Island in subdivisions like the ones that he lives in. And all we're asking on this board is to consider that my client isn't seeking anything greater than what his neighbors were already granted. If the board has any questions at this time, or comments, I'd be happy to address them. Otherwise, that concludes my presentation.
Just one quick question.
Yes.
So this would be one house put in front of the other house?
It's one house put alongside of the other house, yes. What we're looking to do at the present design is to, presently is a ring driveway that goes around the property. So what we're looking to do is remove half of that ring and connect into the Berry Hill Drive with a private driveway. So that's, they'll be side by side. The appearance, his house, the owner's house who's there, actually faces to the east, so it faces the driveway, which would appear to be sort of the front private road. That's why we're facing the other house in that same direction. We're giving it the appearance of a private road that comes up alongside, so that his house will be side by side with the other house. Not necessarily your sort of flag lot situation where both are one's facing the back of the other house. They're going to be side by side like it's an extension of a private drive or private road.
But the record should be clear, what we have before us tonight is not the subdivision.
Correct.
It's not the
yeah.
site plan or anything about of that nature. We just have before us, what's before us tonight is a requested recommendation to the BZA, who, under the certain aspects of the law, requested a recommendation from us. So that's all we have before us tonight.
Yes.
Which is only advisory anyway, because they're the ones who are gonna make the final decision after they get our recommendation.
Understood.
My question is, what are we recommending if there's no final plan? I mean, this, we have one before us. I assume you're going with this or not?
Well, we're in with it now. What we looked at was, they said, let's get over the first hurdle first, as far as like, listen, are you gonna be able to build the house and go over? Because without that, the design concept can't really be discussed any further. So it's a matter of, all right, can we build on this lot? We have issues relative to the steep slopes, and the access is something that's still, I think is still open to discussion. But right now, as I mentioned the last time, the reason why we're seeing the same application again, the one that was denied years past, is that we've always had these issues of access to the property, and the Meadow Glen access has been very problematic. And we've been waiting on adjacent property owners to develop that piece. We've been told that we've seen plans that it's supposed to be developed, and we keep waiting year after year to get access to it. Our argument years back was that this is not fair to us, that we have to be put on hold waiting for these other properties, and we were told, no, this is going to happen. So if it's going to happen, then we're going to talk with the planning department and see if it's really happening. It's just for the last 5 years we've been in a limbo on it, and we're coming back in. Something's going to happen, whether it's going to be to Meadow Glen or out to Berry Hill. We hope that happens if the zoning board chooses to approve the variances. So right now, we're just coming in with a slightly modified version of the last application, because we need to get over this first hurdle. And we understand, I think even language is added, I could be mistaken, that this no way implies the design is approved. It's just a matter of the steep, no matter where we put the house, what we're going to do, we're going to be touching these steep slopes. The rest of it is design issues.
Well, to answer the question, so the record could be clear, what we're recommending, we are recommending to the Board of Zoning Appeals that they approve the request that they have before them to permit what's characterized as environmentally sensitive land to be altered, and also addresses the minimum lot requirement.
Yes.
So that's what we're recommending to them, and of course, they make their decision.
Yes. Where
The
Yeah,
first
go
time it was denied, it was because of the slopes?
No.
Because of
Yeah.
Berry Hill Drive, access to Berry Hill
Yeah,
Drive.
I went up there and looked at it.
But that's the
It's
reason
really
why-
a funny,
But that's the reason why.
But it was denied on the application for a subdivision. We don't have an application for a
Right, right,
subdivision
right.
before us right now.
This
We
is
may at
totally
some time in the
different.
future, but we
Right.
don't. So the application that the gentleman brought up the last time, that was denied back in 2012 and then went to court, that was for the actual subdivision of the property.
we're not there.
We don't have that
No,
now.
no.
We're just making a recommendation to the BZA, which they've asked us to make that to them under the law regarding the steep slopes
And
and also the lot size.
And what our hope is that should the zoning board choose to approve it, we'll be back before this board with the best design that we intend to work out with the planning department.
And if they approve it, and if you come back to us with a subdivision application, then we'll address that at that time.
Yes.
But we're only advisory to the BZA on the variances. They make the final decision. They just, under the law, they basically can request input from us. But I think our input is not binding on them. They could either
Do
grant
whatever
it-
they want, right?
Right. So their planning department's recommending that we recommend to them, the BZA, that to approve it, but what they do is up to them.
And I think
But-
they put in the verbiage also to, I don't know if that's new, Matt, you can tell me.
And
Was that
if
there
we
from the
don't-
original, like this is not a
We have to
reflection
do
of
this.
or an endorsement
No,
of the
no, I'm
design?
saying, can
It
we
was
then
added
deny
in
if we
somewhere.
feel
Yeah.
that they shouldn't do anything,
I-
and leave it the way it
Well, I
is?
think,
On
I
the
think,
roll.
We're messing them up, sorry.
Sorry,
They're
sorry.
talking.
Go ahead,
You're talking.
Sorry.
I don't know who to take down.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Sorry.
go ahead, Billy.
One at a time.
What I was asking you, then, if we deny them, say we don't wanna give it to them, we say, okay, tonight, should keep it the way it is.
You mean deny, we we have before us a resolution.
I want to be clear on this,
Right.
that's all.
We
Thank
have
you.
before us a resolution where we're recommending to the BZA to grant the variances.
And if we don't want to let them grant the
We
variances?
can't stop them from granting.
No, they can do it on their own,
We
but we
wanna
just
say-
wouldn't recommend.
If we don't recommend, then we don't recommend, then they could either grant it or not grant it. If we do recommend, they could still either grant it or not grant it. However, if they grant it, then they have to come back to us for the subdivision, which is what was denied the last time. So we're not actually at that part of it yet.
Okay, thank you.
So we're just being asked to make a recommendation to the BZA.
If you think this is fine, then say, okay, go for it.
Yeah,
If
but I don't
not-
think it's fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
We could, some members of the board may vote to support the resolution to recommend, and some may not, but again, it's up to the BZA.
Exactly.
Yeah, so this.
We have to give some members of the public a chance to be heard too, if anybody else wants to.
Yes. So the sidebar that I had, I apologize, was I was talking to Matt, there was verbiage added after our last meeting when we were here last month that said that, you know, your recommendation, it's not an approval. If you choose to recommend or adopt the recommendation is absent of the design.
He made
where
that, he
access
made
is.
that clear, that
Yeah.
they amended the resolution to make it clear that if this board makes a
Thank you.
positive recommendation to the BZA, that's not to be interpreted that we are approving the application or not approving it, just that we're making a positive recommendation on the variances.
Correct.
Okay, yeah, that's why they amended it, to make sure that's clear.
Okay, yes. Did you, I'm sorry,
No,
Tom?
no, no.
Okay, sorry about that. Okay.
Okay, any members of the public wish to be heard on this? Sir, please give your name and address for the record, please.
David Scrow, 27 Woodhollow Lane in Fort Salonga.
Can you spell your last name, please?
SCRO. As far as the modification to the planning department letter, we appreciate the clarification, separating the issues from the subdivision to the variance, and especially recognizing the lower court decision and the appellate court confirming regarding access. So we appreciate that clarification.
We're not even the final say on the variances, we're just recommending to the
Yes.
BZA, it's really up to them.
Right, and as far as the variance, since the applicant's attorney has brought that issue to the forefront here, in my mind, the proper way is kind of I think it's a little confusing as what the criteria that this board shall look at when they're making a recommendation. It is the sole jurisdiction of the BZA to grant these variances, but they are, by town law, asking you to make a recommendation. So, in my mind, and we talk about character in the neighborhood and so forth, the best way to do that is to take the average square feet of the lot after taking into consideration the variance for steep slopes. And that was basically my analysis that I presented on July 18th of this year. In fact, the record is wholly inadequate of any evidence to support a recommendation of approval. So I think the board should look deep into making a recommendation. At the very least, maybe a no recommendation, but the lack of evidence to support this approval is wholly missing from the record. Now, the applicant does point to one lot in the 15-lot subdivision that I live in, and mentions, and I do know the lot, and singles it out for 52 or 62% variance. But looking at the record, the applicant is asking for a lot variance of 68%. So by definition, it's unprecedented in the area, just by going at the numbers alone. So his characterization of, or his statement that my letter is inaccurate is not correct, because by definition, he's asking for 68%. And again, I don't want to go on to what my letter says, but if you do an analysis on the average square foot of the lot after taking in the variance, which is a character of the neighbor evaluation, the average lot size in the instant case is 13,931.08. The average lot size of the variance on the subdivision for Woodhollow Lane is 42,947. There's no other way to analyze the character of a neighborhood than taking the average lot. The only other point I want to emphasize is that this property has a larger portion of steep slopes greater than 25% than the rest of the subdivision on Woodella Lane. That's all the clarifying points I like to add for the record, but I appreciate the clarification, and I appreciate the fact that there's recognition of what has taken place in the past and the planning reasons that go on by not granting access to Berry Hill, both from conservation and from a planning perspective. I thank you for your consideration.
Thank you very much for your
You're
input,
welcome.
sir. Any other member of the public wish to be heard on this matter? All right, so we have before us a proposed resolution by which the planning department recommends to us that we recommend to the BZA that they approve the variances. Do we have a motion to close the public hearing?
In the matter of number 1181, map of Gemini Landing 2, I move that we close the public hearing.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None? The public hearing is closed. Now, on the proposed resolution, which has been read, by which we would be recommending that the BZA approve the variances, we have a motion on that resolution.
In the matter of number 1181, map of Gemini Landing 2, I move that we adopt the resolution as read in accordance with the recommendation of the planning department.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Opposed.
So we have 2 in favor, 3 opposed, correct?
Correct.
Correct.
And therefore, the resolution put forth by the planning department, by which we would recommend that the BZA approve it, was not passed. Was not adopted.
Okay. We don't have a recommendation.
What we have before us is a resolution that says we recommend approval. That did not pass.
Okay.
Yeah, just so you folks understand, the reason it got to you in this context is under the New York Town Law, which is a state statute, when there's a request to the ZBA for variance, by law, they have to ask for the recommendation from the planning board under subparagraph 6. The second point is that when you're looking at it, you're looking at it not from the perspective of the substance of the variance, you're looking at it from the perspective of the standard for the planning board, which is public safety, welfare, peril, general public safety type issues, which are recited in the resolution. So that's the reason it got to you. It's a little bit confusing because in the intervening period of time between 2012 and the last application, the local law that allowed the planning department and the planning board to look at slope variances was repealed. So that's why originally back in 2012, the zoning board of appeals was not the place where the variance went in the first instance. So that's why it's a little confusing, but whatever you decided tonight is the resolution.
What we
that goes
decided
with the
tonight was that the resolution recommending approval, or recommending that we recommend approval, was not passed.
Right, exactly.
That's what we
But
have.
it's still up to the BZA to decide.
But it's consistent with the process. I know there was a little bit of confusion in terms of.
It was on my part.
It's up to the BZA to decide,
Right.
and if the BZA wants an answer from us, then they'll ask us for some further action. In other words, we don't have a recommendation that they deny it, we just don't have a recommendation that they approve it. But whether we recommended denial or approval, it's still up to them anyway. And they could see, I think they could read between the lines that since 3 people voted against the resolution recommending approval, that most likely those people would be in favor of a resolution recommending denial. But again, we'll cross that bridge if and when we come to it, if we need to.
They're entitled to look at the record, yeah.
So we did everything,
We're done with that.
we're done. Thank you.
For now.
Okay. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you. And I guess the last thing we have is the adoption of the minutes.
Yes.
I move that we adopt the minutes of the July 18th, 2018 meeting of this board.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None? The minutes are adopted. And that being the last order of business on the agenda, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Nobody is opposed? We're adjourned.